So let me tell you a little bit about FRAX. An independent and objective examination assessment. The standard 17024 suggests you go down this examination route. So what we do, we've devised an examination that looks at previous work. So we'll look at the previous work. We'll send that to a lead assessor with criteria, and we'll look through that and to check the content of that work, yeah? If he's made the correct recommendations, if he's quoted the correct standards. Everyone comes to an interview, and they go through a tabletop exercise. It's the first part. We give them a set of plans, and we give them a scenario, a problem to work out. We go a question and answer session, and we look at alternatives. In risk assessment, there might be 3 compensatory measures that will do the same thing. One might be very expensive, one might be average, one might be really cheap, but they'll achieve the same thing. Now, risk assessors, very often poor risk assessors, will be belt and braces, and they will stick to the standard rigidly. So if you haven't got an escape route, they will say stick an escape route on there, hang the cost, you need an escape route in there. But a good risk assessor will come up with some alternatives. So that's question and answer session. Then we have an oral examination. We ask them we've got a big list of questions that we ask them about risk assessment and what they know about it. It goes from fire stopping, the maintenance schedules. We look at everything and we record all those answers. Yeah. So we record all their answers, and the pass mark is 80%. Yeah. We have surveillance. We don't just leave them. We don't just say you're qualified, off you go. Don't worry about it. We surveil every 2 years. We look at the CPD training records, and we also look at their work again. We check their work again. So we don't just leave them. We're also trying to build in random surveillance as well to protect you guys. So random surveillance. So if someone's knows that one of their jobs is potentially going to be looked at by someone, and they might lose their certification on the back of it, they're going to work a little bit harder to make sure that their job is a good job. And then recertification. Every 4 years, we do an on-site visit specifically to look at the way they go through the risk assessment. So the assurances that it gives you is it's a certificate, it's a technical reference. Remember I said a personal reference is no good. You want a technical reference to say this guy knows what he's talking about. We have a photo ID card, a bit like your Corgi guys used to be, or your gas safe. So this is the guy that's doing it. Remember John Smith, he was the manager of a large team, wasn't he? So you're not necessarily getting John Smith, even if you appointed him, like some of you would have done, you might be getting one of his other guys. There's a photo ID listed on the web register. We certificate work, so a competent person is allowed to certificate their work and say, this is done to the best of my ability. There's a certificate to prove I've done what I can do. We use professional consultant lead assessors. These guys are at the top of their profession. You can't assess someone if you're at the same level with them. You can, but it's they do object quite strongly if you get someone that's just at their level. So we've got the top guys in the industry doing this. Obviously that costs, and our scheme, that's what many of the risk assessors say, our scheme is very expensive. But it has to be, it's a whole day assessment. We allow half a day for the work and a half a day for the interview. So it's quite a thorough process. The checkers are being checked. UCAS accreditation audits every 6 months. They come in and they'll say, prove to us that this guy you've certificated knows what he's doing. And we have to show them all the evidence. We have to go through all the processes. Prove to us that the lead assessors you use to assess them are competent to do the job. We have to show them all the interview records, the tabletop exercises they went through. And we're also going to use this national competence standard. CLG have commissioned everyone. I think this must be about, I've got a list of them in a minute. In fact, I'll show them. No. I'll show you a list of them in a minute of who's involved in that. We also have 2 other schemes that we're developing. FRAX Company, and that's a quality assurance certification scheme for companies who offer fire risk assessment services. We've just done our audit on our first company down in Chatham. It was in Chatham. And we found quite a lot of things that were wrong with their risk assessments. We found a lot of things of their quality control measures that weren't making their risk assessments repeatable on a regular basis. And that's what you want. You want quality, repeatable quality all the way through. And it's been a very useful exercise for them. They thought they were doing a great job, and they were doing a really good job. We assess the competence of the individuals in that organisation. We make sure all the reports are peer reviewed, so the quality check on there as well. So one of the reports done by one risk assessor is checked through by another to make sure they've not got any inaccuracies in there. We've got FRAX Internal. This is a third-party certification scheme for occupational fire risk assessors. We were getting a lot of interest in our FRAX scheme when we first did this from the prison service, from people who just work for one company within one organisation. And we couldn't really assess them because the first one was designed for professional risk assessors, someone who sells the services. So the FRAC's internal will actually cover the risk assessor to cover their portfolio. Now, why is that important? Well, if the fire and rescue service come in to do audit and they say this risk assessment isn't suitable and sufficient, the guy can hold my hand up and say, look, I'm third-party certificated. I know what I'm talking about. Do you? And the fire and rescue service find that very difficult to argue against that because some of their enforcement officers don't always know exactly what they're doing, to be honest. This is the Competence Council. The BFC one is highlighted because I was giving this presentation to them in Edinburgh last week. But all these bodies are on there. So we've got certification bodies, we've got training bodies, we've got the fire brigade, C4, we've got all sorts of different people on there. FA are on twice, I don't know why they are, but we've got lots of different people. So anyone that's got an interest in competence of fire risk assessors has been involved in this, and everyone's agreed on what a competent fire risk assessor needs to know, needs to be able to do. They've identified 9 areas of competence where it says knowledge, understanding and application. Put those in, I couldn't fit them all in obviously. So knowledge of applicable legislation, we do that in our assessment. Knowledge of appropriate guidance, we do that in ours. Knowledge of building construction, we didn't do that very well. So since this has come out, well, it's not even published yet, but we've already adapted ours to put building construction in there. And historic building fires is one of the key areas we look at. So we've got different buildings and we show them the different construction. We say, tell us about that, what you would look for. Knowledge of fire hazards and risks, we've got that in ours. Knowledge of preventive measures, yeah. Knowledge of protective measures, got that. Knowledge of means of escape, knowledge of fire safety management, and knowledge of the assessment of risk from fire. We test all those. We're going to make sure that ours matches this competence standard perfectly. And on the bottom of this competence standard, we'll say third-party certification is a way of demonstrating competence against this standard. So it will say that on the bottom. C4 will reference it, CLG will reference it, all those stakeholders will reference it. This is an answer actually from CLG. I wrote to the Fire Minister, Bob Neal, about asking to support third-party certification and also would he support a national register of fire risk assessors. And this is the answer I got back. There would appear to be real benefits to the responsible person if it were possible for the sector to develop and publicise a single register. That single register would help you a lot because everyone would signpost that. You'd know where to go to. Yeah? It would contain these elements. These are the elements you would need to get on this national register. Technical reference from a third party. A code of ethical and professional conduct. You'd sign up to that and that would be published. So you and then you could read that. And if they sold you extra services on the back of their risk assessment that you didn't need, you could complain and they'd get struck off that if it was upheld. And also insurance as well. So if it did go wrong. You've not been able to get that assurance anywhere else until now. Well, there's no national register, but we're pushing for it. That's what it looked like. You can have companies coming in from that route, the bottom route, which is 45,011. That's the standard we use for that. Or you can have individuals coming in with the 17024. All look at competence of the individual. Hopefully, the future in the profession is going to be slightly better than it is now. Companies will be selling competence, not compliance and fear. They'll be selling themselves as competent individuals. You'll be buying competence as standard. You'll say, I want competence because it's value for money. I know it's value for money because I'm paying for what I get. Unfortunately, at the moment, remember I said right at the beginning, you can't tell what you're getting. You just don't know what you're getting. You're not comparing like for like. And there may be some legislation changes, not in England, but certainly in the regional assemblies who are able to move quicker. The Rose Park inquiry, which is a nursing home up in Scotland where I think 4 patients died. The High Sheriff in Scotland, I can see my title right, High Sheriff is putting a report together and we think he's going to say that high-risk sleeping accommodation must be done by competent people. So if you've got high-risk sleeping accommodation, which you guys have, it has to be done by a competent person. It's not going to come through in England, but if Scotland do it, Wales and Northern Ireland probably will follow suit. And thank you.